Hello everyone and welcome to Module 3 entitled Understand Your Users. Now during this module we'll start to get into some of the techniques that designers use when engaging in a user-centered design process for a website project. Now I want to start showing you a definition that the Design Council in the UK developed for user-centered design in 2006. And here's the definition. The central premise of user-centered design is that the best designed products and services result from understanding the needs of the people who will use them. Seems like a straightforward definition and right on the money if I say so myself, but there is one challenge that I see with this definition, and that is where they talk about understanding the needs of the people who will use the products. In many ways that seems like an impossible task. If you were designing a website and eventually your goal is to have millions of unique visitors come to that site every month, how could you possibly know the needs of each individual user? Well, that's where personas come in to try to help. Now, as you may see as you read through the assignments for this week, we are going to be spending a lot of time on website personas in Module 3. Now, a website persona is really a fictitious character or a fictitious user that you create that is intended to represent an entire user group for a website. Now, I know a number of you in the class have jobs in the marketing and communications fields, so you might be familiar with market segmentation, which is basically when you're doing a project or if you're conducting research, when you break your users down into larger groups. Say for example, single men aged 22 to 35, or divorced women aged 35 to 42. But what personas do is get much more specific than that. They take an individual user, say for example, Nick the Celtics fan, and if you're designing a sports site, you start to write characteristics about that fictitious user that might guide the way they want to use the site. So in our example, Nick the Celtics fan might be a die-hard Boston fan, but he might not care about anything else going on in the NBA or any other sport. So if you were designing a sports site, when looking at it from Nick's eyes, you would understand I've got to make it easy for users to find information directly related to their team. So maybe what you would do is set up a login process where when people log in, they can select their favorite teams, and the next time they visit the site, news and information about their favorite team is presented to them right on the home page. So as I'm sure you can imagine, personas are extremely useful when you're developing sites that have a pretty dynamic user base. Now, one of the readings that we have this week is called, appropriately enough, Introduction to Personas. And I think this article does a really great job of explaining, why you might want to use personas, how to develop them, and spends a lot of time talking about the research aspect to it. Now, you don't need to do that for this week's assignments. This week's assignments, where I ask you to write personas, just develop them from your own brains. No actual field research is needed. But the reason why I wanted to include this article in this week's readings is because as you partake in persona assignments in your jobs, I think the research aspect is a really important part of it, and it's something that you should know a lot about actually. And I thought that the reading that I chose for this week did a good job of preparing you should you have an assignment, in your careers that require you to develop personas. And then there's a very short video on the list. It's about 90 seconds. You'll see this video is a handheld iPhone video that was taken at South by Southwest this year. The subject of the video is a gentleman named Alan Cooper, who is widely credited with really coming up with the concept of using personas for web design. Real short video, as I said, 90 seconds, but in this 90 seconds, he talks about his idea of what personas are and why they're important. So I just thought it was interesting for you to hear from, in his words, where personas come from and why you might want to think about using them. And then a couple of other real short assignments on there. One of them is a Venn diagram just for you to take a look at, which is really more of a jokey thing than anything. It's a Venn diagram sort of poking fun at university websites. So beyond the readings and the one video that I'm asking you to watch, your two real big assignments for this week. The first one is to write 3 example personas for a college website project. Now, as you'll see on the required reading list, I'm actually giving you an example of one, a persona that was developed for a college website redesign project. I thought it'd be helpful to have a specific example that shows, items like, format, length, the type of information, so you can understand the expectations I have for you in this assignment. I'm asking you to develop 3 of those. Those should each be about a page in length. I think is a great target. As you'll see, the example that I provided is actually a page and a half. I don't need you to go that long. If you can hit each of these be a page, I think that would be ideal. Now your final assignment for the week asks you to bring your personas into an analysis of a college website. I provide a list of 20 or so sites to choose from, and I'd like you to pick one of these and analyze it through the eyes of your three personas. Does the site effectively reach these three or not? So your analysis should be more than whether you think the site is effective. Now I'll use an example based on the work from Module 1. In Julie's site analysis, she chose Funimation as an example of a site that is well done. She makes an important point a few times in her writing, that the site is appropriate for the audience. She talks about the design choices, font, images, writing style, and ties those choices back to the user that this site is focused on, a gamer. And that's what I'd like you to do for the college site this week. Although I don't want you to tie it back to the general user, I'd like you to bring it back to your three personas, which will be three very specific users. And that's your third module. Now, I've been grading your assignments in the first two modules, but haven't entered them into the grade books. You'll see grades pop up throughout the week, so keep an eye out for that. You may have seen the comments that I've been making on your blog posts for the assignments where you had to enter in a blog. And I would say, as the comments suggest, that overall the work in this class so far has been excellent. So please keep it up as we keep moving ahead. Email me during the week with any questions, and I look forward to speaking to you all soon. Take care.